welcome to a new edition of our show. My name is Business, and as we always say, business means money. Stability and business mean a lot of money. There is a lot to talk about, and lots of activities that have been taking place every day, actually. We start by the travel of President Sisi to the G7 summit in France. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi arrived in the French city of Biarritz on Saturday. President Sisi participates in the summit of the G7 2019, which is headed by France and is to last for 3 days. The visit of President Sisi comes upon an invitation from French President Emmanuel Macron. President Sisi is to present the African causes before the G7 summit. A working session regarding the partnership between the G7 and Africa is to be held. 24 delegations, including US President Donald Trump, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and the Prime Ministers of Japan, Canada, and Britain are to participate. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson makes his debut on the global stage at the G7 summit. Security, development, combating illegal immigration, inequality, and facing the usage of the internet in the terrorist operations are among the most important files. And we have with us online Ambassador Gamel Bayoumi. Hello, sir.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Ambassador Bayoumi. Could you please comment on the travel of President Sisi to the G7 summit, and what are the files that Egypt is planning to present?
Our president is going with two main files. The first file, of course, is of our Egyptian concern. It is that we are marketing for Egypt, the country which is open for trade, for economic cooperation, and for investment, with a free trade area with the whole African continent, 1,200 million inhabitants. Another free trade area with the Arab countries, and it is 400 million inhabitants. And the famous agreement with the association agreement with Europe with 500 million inhabitants also. So Egypt is presenting itself that if you invest in Egypt, produce Egyptian commodities, you can store it and send it to all these markets, exempt from any custom duties. So our exports do not pay any duties in those three main areas. Also, we want to market for the new industrial areas, whether in Sinai and Suez Canal Zone, on the western part of Egypt, on the Red Sea, we have opened the new phosphate industry. This is mainly our file for Egypt. It is for trade, for investment and economic cooperation. The other file is with our president as the chairman of the African Union, and we are trying to defend the African Union position. The African countries are suffering that the money flow from Africa towards the first grade of countries is much more the money coming to Africa. We pay debts, we pay for our imports, and the exports and the investment coming to Africa do not cover the expense of our debt or our imports. So the file Egypt is trying to promote is to promote investment in Africa with the Egyptian experience, with the finance coming from the rich world, whether it is in Europe, in China, in the Arab world, in Japan, and the United States. And I think we gained a lot in this concern, because many countries now are responding positively to this idea of investing in Africa with the Egyptian experience, because Egypt has a very acceptable face in Africa. Those are the main two files our president is carrying with him to the summit.
Sir, it also appears written that France has already decided that there will be no final communique. What does that mean?
I think that there is a lot of things to be discussed among the seven.
Yes.
And it's not a secret that they are not agreeing on everything. There are, of course, differences between the United States on one side and its main trade partners in Europe and Japan, and of course with China and India, because United States is imposing trade barriers against the exports from its main trade partners, and if the other partners escalate in this concern, everybody will be suffering. The whole world trade will be suffering, and this will affect our trade also. So if they do not make a sort of communique or a final declaration, this means that they did not yet agree on what should be done in the coming future concerning those problems.
Ambassador Gamer, thank you very much for being with us. As its meeting on Thursday, the Central Bank of Egypt's Monetary Policy Committee decided to reduce the overnight deposit and lending rates and the central bank's main operation rate by 150 basis points to 14.25%. 15.25% and 14.75% respectively. Reduction of credit and discount rate by 150 basis points to 14.75%. The central bank attributed the rate cut to the continued decline in annual core and core inflation to 8.7%. and 5.9% in July 2019, respectively, the lowest in nearly 4 years, despite the country's recent fiscal tightening measures, which this led to the cost of most petroleum products. He pointed out also the central bank that the decline was supported by the containment of inflationary pressures, which was reflected in the relative decline in monthly inflation rates, as well as the positive impact of the base year, since the measures of fiscal control of the state recently applied were less than the previous year. Bloomberg, also another piece, a Bloomberg economics report said that the Egyptian economy is among the fastest growing economies in the Middle East. The U.S. agencies reported, cited the economic reform measures adopted by the government as being the reason for the speedy economic growth rate witnessed in Egypt. And we have online Mr. Ayub Mahmoud Ayub, former Minister of Trade Commissioner. Hello, sir.
Good evening to you.
Good evening, sir. Sir, let me ask first, about Bloomberg saying that in its report that the Egyptian economy is among the fastest growing economies in the Middle East. Could you please comment on that?
Yes, this is a very important development as far as monetary policy and economic policy in Egypt is concerned. I add to Bloomberg report, positive report, is that the interest rates in Egypt were exceptionally high compared to interest rates in other countries in the region and in the world. Many of the major economies in the world came down with the interest rates.
Yes.
So Egypt is coping with the international market. This is one part. Second part, which is very important for us, to encourage investment, we must come down with the interest rates. And this is what happened. Third, the cost of borrowing, any investor, whether Egyptian or Arab or international, when he is investing in the local market, it costs him money. Why? How it costs him money? Because he has to borrow to complement his project. When the cost is high for him, it prevents investors from investing in the local market. So this decision was timely, accurate. 1.5 percentage points, it seems a bit high for some people, but the interest rate was very high. So we are coming to cope with the international markets as far as interest rates are concerned. This is one part. Another part, we are encouraging foreign investment. Why? Because we need foreign and local investment. Why? Because we need more employment. Because we need a lot as far economic sectors are concerned, whether in infrastructure or in industry or land reclamation and so on. So when the interest rates are high, this discourages investors and would-be investors from coming to the market. So this decision is timely, and it coincides with the Moody's rating of the Egyptian economy as promising. This is one thing. Other thing is that when we see that the inflation rate is coming down and the foreign reserves are going up, these are all very important economic indicators which encourages local investment and will be reflected on the economy as a whole. Another factor which some people are worrying about is that the local savings, some people are worried that their interest rate will go down. Yes, this will happen, but this will divert local savings from the banks to the direct investment. We have seen that some new companies and banks will be in the stock exchange, and about $64 billion from the Suez Canal bonds will be in the market. So it is a timely decision and with the accurate amount of lowering of the interest rates as far as local economy is concerned. It is a positive decision and timely one, and it came at a time which was badly needed, and we are lucky that they begin it today and not tomorrow.
Mr. Mahmoud Ayub, thank you very much for being with us. And we're going for a short break after we'll be coming back with our issue today. Stay tuned to us. Don't go away. Again to Money Means Business, and our issue today, actually the Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources announced in a statement last Wednesday that the production capacity of the field appeared to 2.7 billion cubic feet per day natural gas before the planned date in the field development plan by about 4 months, and we're talking about the Zohr field. The ministry said that this comes after the completion and implementation of the second maritime line with a diameter of 30 inches with a length of 215 kilometers, and the introduction of service in mid-August, which connects the wells of the southern part of the field of Zohr on production, bringing the number of wells currently produced to 12, wells. It added that the current production of the Zohr field has increased to 8 times the production since the first field production began in December 2017. Atif Hassan, head of the Petrobel, pointed out that the company that was assigned the task of developing the field succeeded in putting the first phase of production on the map of production December 2017 through the stages of increasing production upward and the completion of the operation of the 5th, 6th and 7th production units remaining onshore station during the first year. And we're back, and we have with us our guest, engineer Salah Hafiz, former chairman, vice chairman of the General Petroleum Corporation. Welcome, sir, with us here.
Thank you.
Well, we hear a lot about Zohr, and every time, the exploration, and then now, they talked about the production rising to 2.7 billion cubic feet 4 months ahead of schedule. What is going on this field? Are there any other explorations? Or this is, the mega one that we're talking about here.
Yeah, exploration is a going on process that is occurring all the time now with higher speed than in the past. For many reasons that have occurred in the last few years. Mainly, we have identified the price of gas very clearly and transparently. In the past, it used to be fixed in the agreement, and this created a problem because the energy prices went up and down, so it was not encouraging foreign investors to come and invest in Egypt. So there were, because of financial problems, a lot of money was accumulated over the years due for the foreign companies from the government. So they were put off, and it took them a while to readjust when they started getting the arrears, the amounts that were not paid. The other thing, the discovery of Zohr is a significant feature. It's the largest discovery in the East Mediterranean. So it made all the difference and encouraged the company, especially it was, the discovery was in different reservoir rock. Not like the one that all the explorationists are used to. So it opened a new niche for looking for gas in this reservoir. And the demarcation of the economic zones and so on and so forth. All this together created the synergy and attraction for investment. But more importantly, the fossil fuel, all kind of fossil fuel, the only member of the fossil fuel, namely like coal or liquid hydrocarbons, they're all expected to decline, the demand will decline, except the gas. There was a report that in the coming 30 years, 10% of the present demand will be augmented by 10%. So it made many countries interested in getting a share. 10% is a huge amount. You need more than discovery like Zohr, to account, to complement this figure. So at the same time, the Zohr was discovered, and the East Mediterranean came into the formula, the system, to provide gas for Europe. And Europe is the largest gas market in the world. So the competition, and Egypt with a long history of discovering the hydrocarbons at large, and the infrastructure that we have, and the discovery of Zohr, all made this altogether a very attractive resource that are properly exploited.
Well, I know that we talked about this before, but then, when we talk right now, came to my mind with Egypt. Then, Cyprus, of course, and Israel, all, it's in the Mediterranean, the competition with the other discoveries in these countries how do you view that? Would it kind of harm Egypt, or Egypt has its own stance and place that, that is different? The needs will be different, and Egypt will be able to provide whatever is needed.
Well, Egypt, the production of Egypt is just covering the local consumption and a very small amount for export. So it's not, we're not talking about the export part, that Egypt's share should be more than the other countries.
Okay.
Because the local need is higher. But the fact that we're developing our hub, Egypt, to be a regional hub in the area, we can get right-of-way, money for right-of-way. We can get money for liquefying the gas and exporting it. We can get the gas, import the gas, generate electricity and export electricity. Now that we're opening up with Africa, so there will be needs for energy in Africa. So Egypt is going to be a regional hub for energy, not only gas, but mainly gas, though, because of the new discoveries and the discoveries in the nearby areas. But we have the infrastructure, the laws and regulations, that the law of gas that was that came out in the last few years. It helped the private sector to be active in importing and exporting and converting and liquefying and all this. So transparency has to be there. The price, as I said, it's a war of price, because Europe gets their requirement from mainly Russia and the North Sea and Algeria and the Gulf, the Arabian Gulf, from Iran and Qatar, and from Venezuela. They get gas from Venezuela, from West Africa. So they're all different prices, and there are two hubs in Europe, in Rotterdam and London, that they control, but virtual hub, not physical hub like we do. So we're developing the hub, and surely we will be competing with the price, and hopefully we can get a bigger share than from the other countries that cannot control the price because of the distance between the production and the market.
Definitely. And so, as you mentioned Africa, now, as we are back into Africa again, and we're chairing the EU right now, how does this benefit us and benefit them at the same time? Because, we're all Africans, especially in the field of gas, right? Since we're talking about gas now, or energy in general.
Well, they have energy, like Nigeria is an OPEC country, and they have very high production. And North Africa, of course, Algeria, they have gas. And also the West, on the west part of, because of the deltas, usually gas is discovered in deltas. And because of the rain, the rain and the deltas, because in the delta, they collect all the trees and vegetation, and then they finally deposit in the deltas, the flat areas, just before going into the sea. So in millions of years, the debris of the floods, they are converted, they are oxidized and converted into organic material.
Yes.
So deltas are usually rich, like in Egypt here. All the deposits in the Mediterranean are coming from the Nile Delta over millions of years, of course, and they're converted. So Africa is rich in gas, but in Egypt we're more developed with the infrastructure and the gas, and we can build pipelines, and we can convert into electricity, and now the transportation of electricity is done cost effectively and with minimal losses. So Egypt is located between Asia, Europe, and Africa. Africa is a virgin market. Europe, of course, is a developed market, and Asia through China and India, they're coming through the Silk Road that is being now put together, partly marine and partly onshore. And so Egypt location and the Suez Canal, it's not a canal, it's a center. It will be a hub.
Yeah.
And will not be used as a passway only, but this plus the hub for trade at large.
You mentioned Nigeria, and it came to my mind right now when we were talking about the incident of our Egyptian team, under 20, actually 19-year-olds handball that got the world championship and beat Germany at the end. And talking about Nigeria, the Nigerian team, although they did not, they came second, but then they were just rooting for our Egyptian team, and they even walked. They did not give them, they wanted to go and root for them. They did not give them cars that day, so they walked for an hour in order to reach the game and be with the Egyptians.
That was amazing.
It was really wonderful.
Oh yes, it really was.
Yeah. So also, you talked about demarcation lines, that finish. Any kind of problems concerning the demarcation lines? We know, like of a certain state that trying to just, that we're not accepting the demarcation lines, or they were settled some time ago.
The demarcation line, we have identified the demarcation line a long time ago, starting from 1990. But the new thing with Greece.
Yes.
The Greece was never worked out because of the problems of some Greek islands in the Mediterranean as well as in the Aegean Sea. So this is what is being created, skirmishes along with Cyprus, because of the political problem between Turkey and Cyprus. And Turkey never, they were never a party to this agreement. They resented the agreement because of the agreement gives the right to the islands, and there is a small island opposite to their coast, which is Castellorizo. Castellorizo is a small island masking all the exclusive economic zone between that was supposed to exist between Turkey and Egypt. So, but Egypt, we have no problem whatsoever. We have applied the agreement religiously and the protocol, and we did that with the line between Gaza Strip and Egypt, and then Cyprus, and now the president went and made the coalition between the three countries, Egypt, Cyprus, and Greece, to start up the demarcation line as the basic points and the basic lines have been identified by both countries. This is a very important step forward to control the area, which is, the area there is very attractive. It's a new basin, known to be prolific in gas, but not yet in resources. Still, no discoveries were made. So this will give a new area for concessions in the future, as we did in the Red Sea. After solving the problem between Saudi Arabia, and because Saudi Arabia wanted to stop at Ras Banas, and then finally the agreement took it all the way to latitude 22, which is our border line. So it's the whole thing put together created interest because it is safe, and agreements go all the way to become a law in the parliament. So investors are comfortable with the investment they make because they know the price is identified fair and square, and also there is no border problems between neighboring countries.
Exactly, and as you said, like all these are done before, the great, the work that is really coming out right now. So the demarcation lines, all that is just taking place. I think this all falling in place bit by bit.
Yes.
Well, paying the companies, like we had problems before with the exploration companies before because they were not being paid their dues, but now this is done.
This is done, yeah. It went to a very high figure at one point of time, something like over $6 billion they were due, because the agreement implies that they take the upfront risk, invest money until they find a commercial discovery, then they establish a joint venture company to operate for both the foreign partner and Egypt. And they continue investing until they produce. Once they produce, they recover the costs that they have incurred prior to the commercial discovery and in developing the field. And the remaining is split in a favorable percentage to the government and less so to the foreign investor. So what we do, because we need the hydrocarbons in the country, the liquid hydrocarbon, and the gas, actually, we need it internally. So we buy them we buy the amount they produce and they're due to have, because to recover the cost, we buy it and use it locally. Yeah. In the liquid hydrocarbon, it's no problem, because we issue in the EGPC, they issue a daily report of the Egyptian crudes. We have 3 benchmarks. So there's no problem. The problem was with the gas. And this is why it was stagnated for some time, because it was put with ceiling, and the companies were not interested to continue and getting little money like that, because they will never recover the cost that they incur. So the whole thing was stagnant until lately in I think 13 they made the formula whereby they get the company, they increase the price of gas that we use to purchase, and for the foreign companies to make a reasonable IRR. So it was not open-ended, but it was done because if it's less than 10% or IRR, countries like large companies like Eni or companies like this, they wouldn't be interested because they can get a better rate elsewhere. So at least 10%, and this gives a very fair and square figure for the Egyptian government to pay for the gas they take, and for the oil is already sold. So this companies, they don't get money from outside all the time. Okay. You know, once they start the production, they would like to gain, to harvest the investment they made and then spend it in the country, but not to get from. So this luxury was not, did not exist when the Egyptian government was not paying regularly the due amounts for the companies.
So, you know, something interesting, like people say the fuel now, you know, like increased in prices and all that. But then you like, I asked one of the cabs, he said, well, I'm using gas, and gas, you know, can cover a lot. Now it's everywhere in the country, so you can transfer your car from using fuel to gas. Why aren't we doing this? How much would it, you know, is it really feasible? All cars can do this, you know, since gas is cheaper.
The gasoline, the vehicles that operate on gasoline, yes. You can do that with costs, but attainable cost, not very high, but upfront investment before they start getting the gas for a reasonable price and start. But the problem is the distance that they can operate on.
Okay.
You know, it's not like electricity, electrical cars. They can fill in any, but it's usually dual. They can use gasoline or gas, liquid or gas. It was popular among taxis in the past, and then I'm not following up exactly whether they're continuing subsidizing, because they were giving subsidy to the conversion from one system, one fuel to dual fuel. I haven't followed up lately the rate of growth of using gas in the vehicles.
I've been asking actually like the cabs and drivers, and they said we can do this and we can do it on installments. I don't know if there is subsidy. I don't think like there's subsidy if I just want to do my car. But then he said it can be paid on installments, so it's not a big deal. That can be regulated, but then it's cheaper, definitely. You know, using natural gas.
Because it's the calorific value is very high. For gas, so there is no losses, and hence it
But do you think this
money.
is the future, or should we just talk about then again the electric cars that all will change?
Electric cars.
Yeah.
This is the real future.
Well, it changes.
Because it was once it started in Japan a long time ago. They used to butane gas. So it was put in a bottle in the trunk of the car, of the taxis. You know, about 90% of the taxis in Japan were operating on butane gas. And then it's slowed down. Now it's getting more into electrical cars.
Yes. Yes. Another item also in like talking about the new capital and cities that are built from scratch, the new cities. Then now that they are just built differently, of course, on different parameters, of course, the foundations. And many talked about the facades that are very different, and they are economizing energy, and that could be we don't have to use to waste actually energy. What about that?
Well, I've been lately, by the way, to the Alamein area, not the capital, and I was very, very impressed, with the buildings. I don't know how close are they observing the international standards in energy saving and environmental issues.
Yes.
But the one thing I noticed that because Alamein, for instance, is the area, the original area, is quite low in close to the sea, and with the sea level rise expected in the Mediterranean, so this may affect the buildings. But I could see from going around that they must have taken this into consideration, and they are elevating the buildings to a level, to a safe level, and then in the fullness of time when they develop the area, it will be high enough not to be affected by the sea level rise. This is one parameter of environment. But the energy, I don't have details of how they. I'm sure it's in the environmental impact assessment that they have to save energy throughout the process, throughout making the building as well as operating the city. So, but the details, I know the consultants that did the study, and I don't have any doubt in my mind that they must have taken into consideration the efficiency of energy.
Definitely. And I think also the patterns of consumption changed because, people before could leave the light like that, but now, I think with everything, well, even in food and all, like people used to have a lot of waste and throw that. So I think, right now, patterns of consumption, everything changed.
Yeah, this is the idea of removing subsidy to optimize the system, because if everything is subsidized, one doesn't care whether to save or not, because the amount is not worth saving much. But once the subsidy is removed, the first thing even the well-to-do people, they have to think of saving energy, because they don't want the energy bill to go from 2,000 to 10,000.
Exactly. Exactly.
So the poor people still fairly subsidized, but subsidized from the rich people, which is the normal. This is not subsidy in this case.
Yes.
But if your consumption is little, you'll get a very good price. If your consumption is high, the high part of the consumption, you have to pay double the cost of generating the electricity to subsidize the lower consumers.
Definitely. But then with the heat, you know, the summer, the scorching heat, you know, this summer, actually, you know, like this is, you know, like the bills are just yeah, very high.
Without air conditioning, is,
we cannot live, you know, like this is becoming really very difficult. You know, this summer is really hot.
Yes.
But not only in Egypt, actually worldwide. But then, you know, like we had some days actually, you know, like they were really too much. Certainly, we talked a lot about the gas and all, but you know, like we're not really thinking. Well, actually, you know, like Al Alamein, or you know, what we find out every time, there's like some projects that they started in 2 years, and suddenly we see the project and they just, you know, like inaugurate it right away. And Al Alamein also, like that it's really working right now, and you know, the different new cities actually. The energy, of course, we're talking about the cost of energy and all that, and we talked about clean energy. We talked about you know, getting it from the sun. Is anything done concerning that? You know, to be able to use like the sun energy or the clean energy generally in the future?
Well, actually, we are changing the energy mix concept in Egypt quite drastically, because at one point of time we were getting very little energy from the high dam and the rest from fossil fuel. And this is not sustainable formula, not sustainable mix.
Yes.
But now that we have introduced the nuclear energy in Daba, and also we are introducing the solar energy. The solar energy, we have recently built the largest solar energy in the world. You know, it's really huge, and we have the solar either photovoltaic or thermal. So we're doing it thermal, and size is huge, and maybe the upfront investment is a little bit high until now, but the operating cost is very little, and inevitably it will become strategically a must in all energy mix. The renewables are expected to go up to maybe 20% of the energy mix, or 17%, as opposed to 1 or 2% in not very far away. So the trend, this is why I mentioned the gas is the only fossil fuel that expected. The forecast is that it will increase 10% in the coming 30 years. And to increase 30%, and there are fields that are depleting, so actually the amount of gas that will be introduced to the existing, it will be more than 10%. Because the production now, many fields are declining at the end, because it's a depletable resource. So this is very interesting for Egypt here, especially with the regional hub that we've been talking about.
Definitely. And talking about the clean environments and you know, eco-friendly energies, I mean, it's like, you know, the mixes that you talked about. We said before that, you know, carbon was going to be used, but it's pollutant. So are there any changes in the, say, the mixture in the future that is needed to clean actually the
according to Paris, the carbon dioxide amount should not increase more than 1.5% by the end of the century. So it is increasing. This is a lot of carbon dioxide. But it will stabilize then. It will go to this level and stabilize. So in this case, the changes that will occur because of this 1.5% can be alleviated and can be contained with what we know, with the technology we know. If it's more than that, the mathematical model will be very difficult to participate climate changes that will occur, the gales, the amount of rain, the change of the pattern of rain, the melting of ice in Antarctica.
Amazon rainforests,
Amazon, you know, it's been on fire now for so many days, and it's threatening the amount of oxygen, because Brazil is the only country that their quota to reduce the carbon dioxide is plus, not minus, because of the oxygen that the Amazon forest is emitting from the photosynthesis. But now they're losing the Amazon forests. Will definitely create a lot of problem worldwide. Not only in, but all countries are the quotas they have to reduce the carbon dioxide by so much.
Yes.
Brazil, you know, they the increase they have, say 5%, they get it to 4% to their favor, not to against the like other countries, because of the forests they have in the Amazon. So it is really threatening the climate big deal.
Makes me think, you know, are we going to see the end of, not us, you know, I mean, the end of the century like that, with the quick degradation, especially with the rainforest, you know, burning, and we see everywhere that there is degradation in everything. Although we are trying to improve and there is progress, but then there is degradation, a lot of degradation.
Yeah, there is the degradation of biodiversity, which is very, very important resource.
Yes.
It was once portrayed as having a big library with millions of books, and you read only 1 million, and the rest you haven't read yet. So if it's burned, the ones that you didn't read, they will go away with all the secrets forever.
Yes.
So the biodiversity, the genetic characteristics in many of the plants and animals and the rest of it, they can introduce a solution for all our problems. But we don't know, we don't have enough studies that to identify all the biodiversity, the whole spectrum of biodiversity, and more importantly, the characteristic of the genes within the different species. So if we lose them, we will definitely lose many species that we don't know anything about. So we're losing very important resources. With the fire in Brazil, we're losing the biodiversity, we're losing the green that creates oxygen for planet Earth, as it were. So it is a problem.
It's been a pleasure having you, sir. Engineer Salah Hafiz, Vice Chairman of the General Petroleum Corporation. Thank you very much for being with us. And as we go along with the different changes, I hope probably positive, and that we can do something about the negative ones, I mean worldwide. So we'll just be talking about it. Thank you very much for being here. And I'd like to thank also our viewers for being there. We'll see you again next week. As always, we end it. God bless Egypt. God bless Egyptians, our president, the police and army, and God bless the world. We all are interrelated and related together. So يدخلها بسلام إن شاء الله آمين. And to Egypt, God willing, safe, and Mubarak Shabi Nasr. Blessed be Egypt, my people. I'm Nermin Nazim signing off. See you again next week. Goodbye.